Friends, this is the story of a boy who falls in love with his school teacher and to what extent he goes to win her over. We will see that in today's story. The story begins with Lena, a school teacher who was a married woman with a daughter named Rasha. In the same school where Lena taught, there was a handsome but mischievous boy named Benny who was in her class. While Lena was teaching, Benny would just stare at her as if he had fallen in love with her. Seeing this, Lena also started feeling attracted to him. She did not understand how to deal with Benny because he was just a student. Sometimes, Benny would get so close to Lena that she found it very difficult to control herself. So, to avoid getting affected by his attraction, she was ready to do anything. She tried to stay away from him as much as possible. One day, Lena arrived at the class in the morning and handed out test papers to all her students. After giving them instructions, she asked them to start writing. That's when she noticed that Benny was not writing anything on his paper and was just staring at her. Ignoring him, Lena looked in another direction. After class, she went to pick up her daughter, Rasha, from school. Rasha hugged her and complained that school was very boring, making Lena laugh. She then put Rasha in the car, but just then, her eyes fell on Benny, who was out walking his dog. She watched him for a moment before driving away. The next day, during class, one of Lena's students, Jenny, was giving a presentation. While listening, Lena noticed two girls watching a movie on their phones and laughing. She warned them to put their phones away, but when they didn't listen, she took their phones and told them she would return them after class. Annoyed, one of the girls, named Vina, called Lena a strict witch, which made the rest of the class laugh. Lena sternly told her that she would report her behavior to the school authorities. Later, during the break, while Lena was having tea, she suddenly noticed Benny troubling another student, Gary. Benny threw all of Gary's things out of his bag and even broke his bicycle by smashing it on the ground. After this incident, Lena sat in the staff room, discussing Benny's behavior with another teacher. She expressed what she thought about Benny and how he reacted to her. She wanted the other teacher's opinion, but she seemed confused and unsure of what to say. Lena then told her not to worry about it. The next day, after class, Lena called Benny and told him she wanted to talk to him. She took him to an empty classroom and asked him to sit down. After asking about his well-being, she questioned if he liked studying at the school or not. However, Benny didn't respond and instead asked Lena what she wanted from him. Lena told him that she cared about him and advised him not to misbehave with his classmates. While explaining, she placed her hand on his knee and told him to let her know if he needed any help. Benny looked at her hand and smiled, making her quickly pull it away. Benny then smirked and said he didn't believe she actually wanted to help him. Lena replied that she was concerned about his future since he had failed his tests. Hearing this, Benny laughed and said that instead of talking nonsense, she should be honest about what she really wanted. Lena had no response, so she made an excuse about having a meeting and left the room. Before leaving, she told Benny to think about what she had said. The next morning, after going for a run, Lena stopped near a lake to catch her breath. Later, in class, she noticed Benny's bag lying on the ground. She looked around to make sure no one was watching, then secretly took out his sweater, smelled it, and put it back in the bag. Suddenly, she heard the sound of a door opening and quickly hid in the restroom. She bent down and started drinking water from the tap. As she stood up, she was startled to see Benny standing right in front of her. Nervously, she tried to step back, but Benny grabbed her left wrist. She quickly pulled her hand away, but he smiled and grabbed it again. Moving closer, he kissed her on the neck. For a moment, she lost herself in his arms, but she quickly snapped back to reality and pushed him away. She warned him that this should never happen again and threatened that she could have him expelled from school for this. She tells Benny that he is playing with fire, and as soon as she is about to leave, Benny shouts that she wants to do all this. But Lena says that she cannot love any of her sons. The next day, in the school hallway, Benny tells Vanilla that he wants to meet her after class, but she refuses. While talking, they move towards something. Lena says that she is ashamed of whatever happened between them. She tells Benny to erase her from his heart and walks away. Later, when she reaches the parking lot, she sees that the side mirror of her car is broken and there are scratches on it. She sits in the car and drives to pick up Asha from her school, where Asha is sitting and getting bored. The scene shifts, and we see Lena gardening at her home. Her husband, Ward, asks her how the scratches appeared on her car. She lies and says that she hit a lamppost. Ward questions how a lamppost could cause such scratches. She replies that sometimes such things happen. Then he tells Lena that her tea is getting cold and leaves. The next day in class, Lena asks her students to write a letter for their internship and asks if anyone has any questions. Benny raises his hand and asks if she wants to leave the school because he saw her going to the headmistress. The entire class laughs at his remark. Lena, annoyed, says that she will report him to Big Boss. Benny mocks her, saying that she loves licking the headmistress's boots. Angered by his words, Lena picks up his bag and throws it out of the classroom. She gives him an ultimatum: either he leaves the class or she does. Just then, another student, frightened, throws a board that almost hits Lena. Seeing this, Lena walks out of the classroom while the students gossip among themselves. The next day, while teaching Asha at home, Lena's phone keeps ringing, but whenever she picks up, no one speaks from the other end. The following morning, when she arrives at school, she is startled to see Benny sitting alone in the classroom before time. She rushes to the school receptionist and says she isn't feeling well, then leaves for home. That night, while serving dinner, Ward asks her how her day was. She lies, saying she spent the entire day teaching at school and checking students' exam papers. The next morning, after dropping Asha at school, Lena doesn't go to work. Instead, she stops by a riverside and eats an apple. Later, she visits a museum and spends time looking at paintings. Suddenly, she notices Benny there. Seeing him, she panics and tries to leave quickly. But in the elevator, she encounters Benny again. Benny tells Lena that he missed her, which is why he came to school. Then he moves forward to touch her bosom. Lena, losing control, tries to kiss him twice, but Benny stops her and starts running his fingers over her body. That night, Lena has recurring nightmares of her family drifting away from her. She wakes up in a panic. The next day, she sneaks into the school administrator's office and steals the exam papers. When all the students go to the cafeteria for lunch, she plants the stolen papers in Benny's coat to frame him. The next day, while sitting in the break room, Lena sees security guards escorting Benny out of the school. Friends, before we move forward, we request you to subscribe to our English channel so you can continue getting amazing videos like this. After Benny is expelled from school for stealing the exam papers, Lena starts missing him and reminiscing about their moments together. One day, Lena and Asha visit a bookstore. Asha wants to buy a book as a gift for her friend, but upon arriving, she insists on getting a stuffed animal instead. Lena refuses. After a while, Asha suddenly disappears. Lena frantically searches for her, but after 45 minutes, when she still can't find her, she asks the security team to show her the CCTV footage. In the footage, she sees Benny following both of them. Panic-stricken, she runs outside, only to receive a call from Ward saying that Asha is with him at home. Relieved, she apologizes to the security guards and leaves. That night, while she is trying to sleep, she repeatedly hears knocking on the door. Realizing it's just her imagination, she steps outside and shouts, but the noise stops. She locks the door and lies back down, dreaming about getting intimate with Benny. The entire night passes this way, and she wakes up when the morning alarm goes off. Lena and Ward hug each other. Later, while driving her car, Lena reaches Benny's house. She parks her car a little distance away and waits. As soon as Benny appears on his scooter, she follows him. She chases him to a deserted area and then suddenly accelerates her car, ramming into Benny and knocking him off his scooter. After parking her car, she steps out. At this moment, it becomes clear that Lena is willing to go to any extent to get rid of Benny, even if it means killing him. And this is where the movie ends.